Good morning mga katribo. Welcome to another episode of Daily Tribune Straight Talk, where we tackle current issues that matter to each of us. This is Teddy Montelibano.
Good morning. I'm Chito Lozada. We are live on Daily Tribune's Facebook and Facebook page and Tribune now on YouTube.
This morning we talk about coffee. Our guest is a former lead copper of coffee by one of the pioneers of coffee roasting in the Philippines.
Mga katribu, we'd like to introduce you to Mr. Emmanuel Torrejon, the man behind the leading exporter of Philippine coffee during the late 80s into the early 90s.
He's not
He's now president of
director.
UCC.
Sorry. Don't follow that. Who gave you that? Sorry. Is it possible to start?
No.
Who made
We're
this?
live.
He's not the president. Our live?
Yeah.
God, this is terrible.
Anyway,
He's with the UCC. So,
with
Mr.
UCC,
Torrejon,
He's director for
welcome.
business development.
Business development.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Good morning, Chito. Good morning, Ted.
Hello. Sorry about that, man.
It's okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're curious about coffee. You know, all of us drink coffee. Most of us. We cannot start a day without a good cup of coffee, right?
Every
But have you
Filipino
ever
does.
wondered what is that brew that we put into our, put
System.
into our mouth and drink? And some of us, like me, I have a bad mood if I miss my cup of
As
of
they
Java.
say, don't talk to me until I had my first cup.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So,
So
funny.
I guess coffee is magical to everyone. It's something that starts you in the morning. It's
Starts your
something
mood,
that it's a mood booster. It boosts your mood, makes you happy, makes you think. So coffee for us is a lot of things, but aside from all the things I said, it's really a enjoyable beverage
Correct.
that everyone enjoys, mostly,
Oh.
especially in the Philippines.
Okay, so as I said, we just take our cup of coffee, but not so many of us know about what
The
is
history.
Philippine coffee.
Yeah,
What
the
is the
history of
story
coffee.
behind every brew that we take?
Who had the
Can we
first
start?
Well,
cup of
yeah,
may I
coffee
just
in
say
the
this?
Philippines?
Manny has been in the coffee business or coffee industry for the past 3 decades. No?
yes.
So how did you
Shows my
start?
age then. Well, I said it shows my age. But anyway, I started out in coffee with this company that was a management consultancy, and they had a client in the U.S. that was interested in finding out more about coffee from Asia, especially the Philippines. So we started to research as a management company. Then we stumbled into the industry. It was
What year was that?
already
What
it
year
was
was that?
already growing industry in the 80s.
80s.
And we were exporting coffee to the West, the U.S., Europe, and
Really? The
during
US
that
and
time
Europe,
we had what they called the International Coffee Organization Agreement,
I see.
and in that agreement, member countries were given quotas to export coffee.
That's like
So the Philippines was given a particular quota.
it's like the OPEC of
Yes,
the coffee industry.
of the coffee industry.
Yeah.
And it's based in London. And we were given quotas, and the government was given quotas, and these quotas were distributed among exporters. So the company I was working for had quotas, and we started to export in the 80s, early 80s, until probably the mid-90s.
What company was this?
This was ECI Trading, which is now Gourmet Coffee.
Oh, Ernest Escalera.
Owned by my previous boss, Ernest Escalera. So we exported coffee, and at the same time, we bought coffee from other exporters and was brokering these coffees to the U.S. and to Europe. So that was what I would probably say the second golden age of coffee, because the first golden
80s.
age was in the late 1800s
1800s.
when we were exporting coffee to Europe, especially to Spain. So that was the first golden age, and the second golden age was in the 80s through the 90s.
Yeah.
However, presently we're not really exporting anymore because most of the coffee is consumed locally.
Okay.
Our consumption is so huge that we are unable to export any
Keep up
coffee.
with the
If there are any exports, it's small batch, specialty coffee.
specialty
That's what we export to Japan, probably, and to the U.S.
We export to Japan, huh?
Yes, we export to. There's some Japanese importers who love Philippine coffee.
Really?
Yes.
And I thought Japanese
And the
coffee was-
U.S., there's this company in Benguet who they process their coffee and ship it out to Seattle in the U.S.
Oh wow,
And
fantastic.
they have buyers
So,
there.
Philippine-
And actually, even in LA now, there are a lot of Filipino shops, coffee shops that want to buy, but we don't have enough.
What particular variety are being exported?
We export the
in
Arabica
Japan?
variety,
Arabica.
and also the Barako to Japan. There
Why-
is a particular
That's
niche
the
market in
Liberica,
Japan, the Liberica, that the Japanese find it exotic.
So I have similar taste with the Japanese.
The Japanese.
in
Teddy
terms of
likes
coffee.
Barako.
I only drink
Maybe you have
Barako
the
coffee for local
Japanese blood in you.
coffee. Yeah, because it's just body. It is really distinctly Filipino.
Yes, very distinctly Filipino, earthy and very strong
And with good flavor.
with flavor.
Globally, is the Barako the best?
Should know.
You know, it's one of the
quality.
4 main varieties that are grown worldwide, but it's not really that well known outside of the Philippines.
Why?
Aside from, I mean, the pocket markets in Japan, probably some in Europe. We've exported that to Europe in roasted form.
Which countries in Europe?
Germany.
German.
And Switzerland,
German's
sorry,
foundation.
Germany and Switzerland. But it's very small production. It doesn't make a dent in the international market.
Specialty small batch coffees.
Yeah.
So what variety would we be? Would we have
Well, the most
opportunity in the
popular
market?
variety is still Arabica worldwide.
Arabica.
Although we produce very little Arabica compared to the huge production of Robusta, which is more for instant coffee and also consumed locally as roasted and ground coffee.
I was just wondering, Robusta is very popular, but can you enjoy Robusta coffee outside of the fast?
You'd be surprised that a lot of
Fast,
Filipinos like Robusta because we grew up with Robusta.
I
So a lot of Filipinos, not only in Metro Manila but outside, like Robusta because that's the flavor that they grew up with. It's rather earthy, sometimes very wild flavors and very strong. Because Robusta
Really?
has higher caffeine. By the way, your caffeine is doubled in Robusta compared to the Arabica. So
Yes,
if you're very sensitive with caffeine, it's better for you to take Arabica rather than Robusta.
Arabic is finer.
As they say, Arabica is finer. And Robusta, probably if taken in huge amounts, can result in some palpitations.
Yeah. Is it stronger than Barako? Liberica?
Would be about the same.
Yeah.
Would be about the same.
What are the differences? There are 4 varieties, right?
Yes, there are 4 varieties. You have Arabica, which is
Arabica.
the majority. You have Robusta, you have Liberica, and Excelsa. Excelsa actually is just like a cousin of Liberica. They share the same profile, more or less.
Is that
But it's a smaller bean. The
the-
Barako is a bigger bean compared to the
The
Excelsa.
beans, the
Yes.
size of the beans.
Yes.
What does it say when you say dark roast, medium roast?
Well, these are the levels of roasting and depends on the preference of the market. So in the Philippines, we prefer darker roasts. At the same time, this means if your coffee is not too high quality, usually roasters roast it a bit higher than usual.
They make it darker.
Yeah, they make it darker so that probably some of the defects can be kept.
So now I
So
understand.
you understand that.
Okay.
That's why right now the specialty coffee market is light roast. If you go to a lot of
Light
specialty
roast.
markets, coffee shops, they're very light roast. People find them too weak,
Yeah, bland.
too bland,
Yeah.
tea-like. But that's
Yeah,
how
tea-like,
how the new generation views coffee like tea, like a lot of nuances, a lot of fruity flavors, di
I
ba?
want my generation.
So
I'm
Not
very
your
with a
comfortable.
darker
I'm very
roast,
comfortable with what the
you
big
get the
generation
more
likes
the more
in terms of
smoky
coffee.
smoky profile, the more coffee-ish profile.
Yes.
So that's the old school.
Yeah, I like this. I like
If you
Komodo.
compare our market with our neighbors like Indonesia.
When
is
you
the
say
biggest
market or production, production-wise, Indonesia is second to Vietnam.
What is the first? What is the
Vietnam's
The biggest
first.
in Asia, the Southeast Asia, the biggest is Vietnam. Then
biggest in
Indonesia.
terms of what?
In terms of production.
Production and do they export as well?
Exports.
They export.
They export a lot.
What is their demand for coffee?
Worldwide
you
or
know?
locally?
No, locally.
Locally, we
No,
import.
Vietnam.
Vietnam is smaller demand than the Philippines.
So they're not coffee drinkers.
They are, but
Their
they're not
population,
as big as consumer as the Philippines in terms of absolute volumes, because the Filipinos really have a high propensity to
drink coffee.
drink coffee.
But Vietnam can produce a lot of coffee.
It has.
I mean,
it,
more
it
than
is
more than we can.
producing. Yeah. They're exporting. They're exporting. Let's say around 12,000 tons or something like that.
That's how many
12,000,
in
yeah.
terms of percentage of their production?
That's about probably 90%.
90%
Yeah.
are exported.
They're
Wow.
exported.
Fantastic.
They're the biggest. Vietnam is a saver in the coffee industry. Kasi
Savior.
savior, parang
Why?
savior. Because if they didn't produce that much coffee, we would be lacking coffee in the world at the moment.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's how.
And they did that, or they achieved that starting only in the 80s.
Wow.
Before the 80s, we were actually bigger than Vietnam. So it's a miracle actually.
So
What they have achieved.
What does Vietnam have that we don't have in terms of coffee
Farmers.
growing? Farmers.
A lot
okay.
of them are still in their
Willing.
farms. In the
Farmers who are
Philippines,
willing to grow coffee.
most of our
Urbanization, eh?
population is already in the cities.
Urbanization.
So urbanization is faster in the Philippines. Plus, the owners of the land is the state, right, in Vietnam. So they give the privilege to the farmers to plant the coffee. It's a
State.
privilege to plant.
What do you mean
It's not
privilege?
the ownership of property in Vietnam is still with the state.
So,
So
what
they
do you mean by
allocate
privilege?
the property. There is no real owner of the
So they
property.
allocate.
Yeah,
They allocate.
plan.
Do they give?
And if you
they
don't
give
farm it,
perks? Do they give
parang
privileges?
rights, privileges.
Privileges.
If you don't farm it, they'll take it back.
They get back.
But
Something
you
in
earn-
the
but you
Philippines,
earn-
you own the land. If you don't plant on it, the government will not take it back.
But how much does the government?
Just
what does the government get?
I think
from
there's
the land?
I'm not very sure, but there's a particular tax or rent on that property.
I see.
Yeah.
So,
So
it's from
the
government.
farmers are forced to work the farm. So that's why Vietnam is very big in terms of coffee, black pepper, cacao now. They're quite
Rice.
big also. Rice.
So state supported.
Stay supported.
What about the
And the-
implements,
the-
the ingredient? For
No, the
growing?
inputs, I think they're also supported very much by the government. So there's a lot of government support, and Vietnam talaga is agriculturally blessed also.
Yes.
They're
Good soil.
the soil,
Good
the
weather.
climate, good
Climate,
weather,
yeah.
and they're contiguous.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying
One
earlier.
piece, yeah.
One of the problems of the Philippines is we're archipelagic. So archipelago, it's scattered. There's no big contiguous lands except Luzon maybe and Mindanao.
So as you said,
Visayas is also quite scattered.
so I guess what would distinguish us would be
Oh.
what would distinguish us in terms of coffee to the world?
What
would be
competitive
that we
advantage
export
do we have?
small batch. We are
Small
an
batch.
exporter of small
At the
batch.
moment, there's a lot of small batch production. Thanks to a lot of support also from, let's say, NGOs. The farmers are getting a lot of, education on processing their coffee,
Yeah.
especially in Mindanao. There's a Phil Cafe project in Mindanao that's helping the farmers how to process and how to cup their coffees. So that has helped a lot in raising the standards also of our coffee. Although smaller batch, micro lots as they call it,
Micro
but
lots.
they're very good quality.
Okay.
On the SEA scoring system, that's
What is
80
SEA?
Specialty Coffee Association. That's a worldwide group. They have this scoring system of 100 points. We're scoring some from 80 to 86.
Wow, that's fantastic.
That's high. Yeah.
That's quite high. That's good. That's good for us. I mean, to be called specialty coffee, kasi you have to score at least 80 points
Oh,
in the SAA system.
How long have we? I mean, when you started out in Philippine coffee, that was 1980s.
Yes.
Were we already in that category? Were we in that level already?
No, in terms of quality, hindi pa.
So nag-progress talaga.
Yeah, we progressed in terms of quality, and a lot of that is through education and also awareness, which like the coffee board has,
Yeah, which
has
I-
done.
Yeah, which
Has
is
done
done.
is the awareness of coffee and awareness of Philippine coffee, and also helping in some form the farmers.
No, okay, so you mentioned the Philippine Coffee Board. Let's talk about that. What is the Philippine Coffee
Well, the
Board?
Philippine Coffee Board is an NGO started in the year 2000
By
by the core group of Mr. Bill Luz, Chituan, Nicky Mati, and Doc Moica. They started this when then I think
Chito
Agriculture
Lorenzo.
Chief Lorenzo was there. So it started in the year 2000, and it's still active up to now.
So Chito was the one who convened it,
Yeah, Cito
Convenient, okay.
Lorenzo.
and then the primary
Purpose was to create awareness of Philippine coffee, and also help in production of
Do
Philippine
they
coffee.
get the government support? The coffee board
No, it's an NGO, so
NGO.
it's self-funded,
purely
self-funded.
When we self-funded.
We create our own fundraising activities to help do the awareness in terms of educational classes, in terms of then we had this yearly event wherein we showcased Philippine coffee, and actually we started the awareness of Philippine origin coffees. So to distinguish, let's say, Benguet coffee as against Mount Apo coffee and Bukidnon coffee. At in the 80s kasi wala naman differentiation yan. They were all Philippine coffee.
Now they have
Now we can distinguish already, and we had events then to promote origins from different parts of the country.
When you say single origin for you, I always encounter the term.
Single origin
what
just
does it
means
mean?
that it's either from a single farm or a single area.
Okay.
So as,
Benguet,
is-
for instance.
as opposed to, let's say, Philippine coffee, which can be a combination of coffees from everywhere. So
this
pag
is-
single origin, it gives you more, the profile can be more distinguishable. It can be, coffee from, let's say, Mindanao can be distinguished against coffee from Luzon, Benguet.
Okay.
So you can distinguish by in terms of the acidity, the body, the sweetness of the coffee.
What about muster? What about roasting? What does roasting mean?
Roasting
And
basically.
does it lessen acidity or does it?
Okay, roasting makes coffee drinkable. Kasi you start with the green coffee, which is the raw form. We call it green coffee beans. So that's the raw form, and then you roast this coffee to come out with roasted coffee, which you can grind and brew, right?
Okay.
So roasting is a process wherein you transform the raw form into something that can be consumed. No?
Yes.
So the roasting affects how the flavor comes out eventually. So lighter roasts come out with more acidic coffee. Darker roasts come out with less acidity but more body. So depending on the roast master, on how he develops the roast,
Yeah.
you will end up with a cup that you like. So for, let's say, filter coffee, which we do a lot of pour over nowadays, you have to roast it a bit lighter or in the medium roast. Because if you dose it too dark, you won't be able to appreciate the flavors coming out of roasted
I
coffee.
may be doing
That's
it
where the expert
Then,
comes
if you
in.
want to explore more espresso, then you can roast it from medium to dark,
Yeah.
which brings out the oils, which you need during the brewing process in the espresso machine.
You know,
But there's a lot of factors that you have to look
You
at in terms of roast, in terms of how the coffee was also processed. So before it's roasted, the processing is very vital as well. It's kailangan tama ang pag-process mo. So there are a couple of processes we know: dry process, honey process, and then the washed process.
So what's your process? You're
No, you
known-
have different.
You know, in the industry, as some sort of a
No, but
of a
you
master
Yes,
you
we have
process.
to,
You
we
have to get into a course. As a matter of fact,
have to
if
take a
people want to
course.
take
No.
courses, there are a lot of schools now, one of which, plug mo na lang, UCC Coffee Academy.
Ay,
You can
habang
go there.
That's interesting.
The director there is Mr. Robert Francisco, who used
Robert's
to be
still
with.
around, huh?
He's now with UCC with us.
Okay.
Robert's still around.
Great.
He's the guy who started
let's,
Figaro with Miss Juan.
Kaya Figaro, Chito.
Yes. Figure
So
out.
we're going to take a break, and it's getting to be an interesting topic, coffee, which all Filipinos consume.
I'm
So we'll be back.
salivating.
Nasa kamay mo ang swerte, ngunit hindi ito isang laro na para lang sa'yo. Dahil bukod sa pag-asang maging milyonaryo, ang pagtangkilik mo sa loto at iba pang produkto ng PCSO ay nakakalikom ng pondo para sa mga programang pangkalusugan, tulong at serbisyong medikal at kawang-gawa.
Lahat ng minimithi makakamtan sa PCSO.
Iba ng panahon, ang dami ng bago ngayon. Pati ang mundo natin, well, nagbago na rin. Buti ang bayan, bigger, better na. You can buy it sa centers, pati sa mga partners, may online pa at app. You can buy it with your fingers, still don't remittance and more. Online shopping, you can buy it all. Di magpadala, you can buy it all. Anumang pera transaction, you can buy it all.
Sabayan ang pagbabago ng mundo for all your pera transactions, all new Bayan.
Every time I'm on the road, I can expect high performance from Phoenix Fuels. Now with Pulse technology, delivers enhanced power and acceleration to make every trip come alive.
Viber is the free and secure way to connect with friends and family anywhere. Send messages and make phone and video calls for free. Download Viber now.
back here with Mr. Manny Torrejon. Manny, we
It's a
just want to
question from a viewer.
from a viewer.
There's a question from a viewer. There's a
And
question
the
from a
question
viewer.
is, why is
Decaffeinated.
decaffeinated coffee more pricey?
Well, decaffeinated coffee kasi goes through a process. It's an additional process after the coffee is processed in the farm, after it's sorted and cleaned. It goes into another process, which is decaffeination.
Okay.
The decaffeination process, you take out almost all the caffeine. No, you end up with about a 97% caffeine-free coffee, as advertised by the decaffeinators. So this process, they wet the coffee, they extract the caffeine through different systems. They have the methyl chloride system, which is the chemical process, and they have the Swiss water process, which is more. It's supposed to be healthier,
Supposed to be
less
healthier.
chemicals used, and more expensive, even more expensive than the methyl system.
So
That additional process creates one, you lose weight on the coffee, so it becomes more expensive. Number two is the process itself.
I
So
see.
that's why it's more expensive than the usual regular coffee.
More expensive, but not necessarily
Better.
better tasting.
Well,
Would
yes,
want decaf.
definitely not better tasting.
But
Because they take out the
can-
caffeine, and in the process, sometimes some of the flavors are
Come out,
taken out.
yeah.
Can you trust all those coffee brands that said that they are decaf?
Well,
The-
as I said, as I always will say, you just have to know your coffee
your
supplier, your coffee source, because there can be a lot of coffee which is not, is not as they are
They are
advertised.
advertised.
Yes.
Okay.
So trust in the coffee system is important.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about your own personal history with coffee, with Philippine coffee. You know, so you started with Easy Eye, and then but at one point in time, you and some close friends also put up your own coffee trading business.
Yes.
What was
After ECI, we ventured in with a partner, with a foreign partner. We ventured into a exporting company.
What
The
partner
name of
was-
the company was Oriental and Occidental. So
Yes.
Oriental
ONO.
for our portion with my partner, and Occidental for the English.
You're an English
We had
partner.
English partners.
I see.
At that time, kasi it was critical that you have good contacts outside, because at that time exportation was the business talaga. So
see.
you have to trust your foreign buyer. So eventually we partnered with a English company, which was a big importer of coffee, and through that we were able to get financing also to finance our projects here in the Philippines. We established a office in Davao to buy a lot
Philippine
of
coffee.
coffee.
Why Davao?
Davao, because Mindanao is still the bigger producer of coffee in the Philippines.
Not the mountain
Oh, yeah.
province.
No,
Not
Mountain
Cordillera.
Province
Mindanao.
is they produce coffee, but they're not as much as the Mindanao, because see, Mindanao is still contiguous, and you know,
Okay.
there's more mountains there, especially northern Mindanao, which is Bukidnon.
These are the big commercial producers. right?
Yes, and
The branded.
at the moment, there's one big farm in Sultan Kudarat that produces a lot of coffee. It's about 300 hectares also,
Wow, 300 hectares of coffee.
owned by a family, a prominent family.
From Davao. From Mindanao.
From no, actually, I think they're from Manila.
Manila.
They're involved in construction.
Okay.
Manny, can we get back the stature of the Philippines as an exporter? Is there a chance that we can grow enough?
Not if your consumption still grows. The problem with the Philippines, you have to do a lot of catching up in terms of production, because consumption is just growing. There are more and more Filipinos getting hooked on coffee. So what do we do?
That's a good development.
How much do we produce? How
We
much
produce more or less about 30,000 tons.
And what is the demand?
The
The demand is
demand.
about close to
150.
200,000 tons.
Oh my goodness.
That's
So-
how big it is.
Jesus, so we can
So,
hardly. So
we
that's
can
why.
hardly, you know, we're importing very huge amounts of coffee.
Well, I've heard
And very
about
important.
70% of the coffee that we drink is imported.
Yes.
70%.
Could be.
70%.
Could be. Even more, let's say.
Starbucks, for example.
Well, our biggest consumption is still coffee mixes, which is our 3-in-1.
3-in-1.
Then the second largest is instant coffee, which is without any creamer or sugar. And then the last would be the regular roast and ground coffee.
We are a minority.
Yeah, we are a minority. The biggest market is still the coffee mixes. That's why you have this famous Indonesian brand
Right.
also dominating the market.
What is this Indonesian brand?
I say.
Never mind.
Never
Take
mind.
yes, UCC.
Anyway, so
Coffee
there's
mix.
a lot of room for people to produce coffee in the Philippines. So if they're
What?
potential farmers,
Is it
go
profitable?
ahead.
Is it lucrative?
That's another story. It's
Okay.
how you farm your coffee. Well, as in any agricultural venture,
Mechanization.
there's always a risk.
There's many risks. There's
plenty
many
of
risks,
There's,
actually.
there's drought.
Climate.
There's typhoons.
Yeah.
There, you know, there's
Can wipe out your-
pests.
Yeah, pests.
There's as in the late 1800s, there was the coffee rust, which
Coffee rust, yeah.
destroyed a lot of the coffee farms in Lipa, which were producing for export. So agricultural ventures are not easy. They're not definitely easy. That's why that's one reason why there's not a lot of Filipinos also probably not going into
Farming.
farming.
Yeah, that's true.
What area should we develop so that we can
We're
at
gonna
least,
produce more coffee.
Yeah, per
Well, there's a
capita.
lot of the whole Philippines is a potential growing area for especially the highlands. Although
highlands?
the lowlands can also produce good robusta. The highlands, if you really want Arabica, you have to go higher than let's say 800 meters.
That's
Above sea
Baguio,
level.
that's,
Not really Baguio, mga ano lang, even higher than let's
Lipa.
say Lipa. Lipa can be possible.
Like,
Tagaytay, basically, that area can grow a lot of robusta, but not really good Arabica.
What about the Davao? Or
Davao, Mount Apo is perfect.
perfect.
Perfect. The soil, the climate.
The one of Chin Uy, where does he?
Negros, in Negros. Yeah,
What
there's a
about
lot
Negros?
of people. Well, because Negros is possible talaga because of Mount Canlaon.
Yeah,
All the volcanic soil and all the the surroundings of Mount Canlaon, you can grow perfect coffee there. As a matter of fact, we had a very good farm there way back in the 50s, the 40s. It's the Oriarte Farms. I don't know, you remember the brand?
I don't
They
know.
were
what
way
brand.
advanced.
What
They
brand
were
was
a
that?
Cuban family that settled
I don't know
down
Oriartes, but
in
I don't know
Negros.
what brand was this.
Oriarte Coffee.
Oriarte
Oriarte
coffee. I
And
didn't know. I don't.
Malayba Coffee.
Malayba.
Malayba. Malayba, which is an area.
I never thought that Oriartes would
You
be
know,
coffee.
Negros is perfect for coffee because of Mount Canlaon.
Yeah.
And as I said, this farm, they started out in I think the 40s when I think they ran away from Cuba, and
So
that
they're
story of that
Cuban,
family.
Spanish family.
And they were able to set up farms in Negros, in more or less in the Pontevedra area, and they put up a facility there, which now is in ruins. Sayang. It's there, and they were roasting coffee already during the 50s.
Fantastic.
And a lot of their production went into the households of the Negrenses.
Yes.
And,
That's why we have good coffee.
yes,
pala.
yeah. That's
You know,
why
Negros really has good
Negros
coffee.
and Negrenses
Local
like
coffee.
to drink coffee. There are a lot of coffee houses in Negros, small coffee houses, where they still brew.
Yes.
Oh,
They
yeah?
still brew their coffee even in the
From beans
from
to
the sack system.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sala.
Sala
that would
system.
be the best
They just
tasting coffee.
filter it. They filter the coffee, but that's still prevalent in Negros.
If
Bacolod
you,
and the
Manny,
other
if you
towns.
rate the quality or variety of Philippine coffee with the more popular brands like in South American brands like
Well,
Colombia,
South
how would you rate it?
We're not as advanced as these coffee growing countries kasi like Colombia. They're very much advanced.
In terms of
They
what?
have in terms
Advanced
of
in terms of what?
technology, in terms of
Technology.
varieties, because they have their own coffee research
Don't we
coffee
have that?
research.
Coffee board, yeah, but do we have that?
We have state colleges which do a bit of research, like CABSU, Cavite State University. They have their
And
programs.
Cavite
your
State University.
UCC school.
Well, yeah, but
University.
in Colombia, let's say in Colombia, they have a farmer led research group that researches and varieties, how to grow this properly and everything. So even Central America, like Costa Rica, they have very advanced coffee
yeah.
countries, coffee communities and economies. And well, Africa is another area that's also quite advanced.
What's that?
Africa.
What's the
Africa,
popular?
Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya is very much
Kenya.
advanced. They have government agencies which really just focus on coffee.
Fantastic. What's that popular coffee of Africa again?
Africa.
Geisha.
No,
Ethiopia.
no.
Ethiopian coffee.
Ethiopian coffee is quite popular.
Blue Mountain or something?
Blue Mountain is in
Kona in Hawaii,
no,
right?
is in Jamaica. Kona is in
Jamaica.
Hawaii.
Yeah. Hawaii
Which
also has
both
good coffee.
we offer in UCC.
Bragging. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, but who are among those? Who are among those who develop? Is this a question from a viewer?
No, that's your question.
Okay. I finished that now.
Anyway, yeah, the local industry would have to
Do a lot of catching up.
do a lot of
The production, but consumption, there's no problem. And we have a lot of coffee shops nowadays, which are even specialized.
So the
You
problem
have,
really
you have a lot
Maybe
of
saying-
foreign brands coming in.
Yeah, 70%.
yeah, 70%.
For,
Starbucks.
for the 3-in-1.
Starbucks is so popular. It's just the #1 coffee shop now.
Yes, Starbucks. Aside from
Far
others,
second,
we have,
you
others which I don't have to mention, but there are a lot of foreign coffee shop concepts that have come into the Philippines. Well, there's still other concepts
Blue
that I
Bottle.
cannot. Well, Blue Bottle is still not in the country,
Okay.
but I wouldn't be surprised one day if
Coffee bean and
it
tea
just
leaf.
pops out from one.
Coffee
Of,
tea leaf, no?
coffee bean and tea leaf is there.
Yeah,
Has
but
been there.
They're around.
But we should give our local coffee shops.
Our local
a
coffee
chance.
shops are.
There's
There's
so
one in
many
Bacolod.
sprouting
There's
out.
one in Bacolod that's really specialty.
And
But again, small batch. No?
Coffee culture.
Coffee culture.
Culture.
Even here, where is a good coffee here in Manila?
I cannot.
You cannot?
I cannot
You just
recommend, but
whisper,
there are a lot.
you just whisper to us later.
I'll be too biased to.
Whisper to us later.
But
Yeah.
there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Give
There are a lot of
give us your
independent coffee
Emmanuel
shops.
Torrejon list.
Independent coffee shops, and it depends what you like. You like espresso, you like filter coffee,
Like
you
pour
like
over.
pour over. Okay, pour over coffee. Yeah,
Dark
there are a lot.
Pour over.
There are a lot of pour
Yes.
over shops already, but
know this,
espresso
Well,
still
even
is
Starbucks has
Figaro.
pour over now. In Bacolod,
in
it's so.
reserve. In reserve.
In
coffee.
Bacolod.
Yeah.
Who's the
Of course,
pioneer?
UCC. UCC
Of course,
has,
UCC.
no?
No, we pioneered siphon coffee here.
Yeah, so
Siphon.
expensive. 100.
Siphon is a very good way of
But you know what? I'll
preparing
tell you
coffee.
something. This Yumiya, sorry, never mind. Let's not talk about it.
Let's not delve about it.
It's a matter of preference. But
Matter of preference.
it's a little bit bitter. I mean,
Well, people like some people like the bitterness in coffee.
Like in specialty coffees, do we have a chance to really have that much to export and
Well,
able to-
if the farmers in, let's say, in Benguet and Mount Apo, Bukidnon, if they step up and they increase production, yes, definitely. Cooperatives, there are cooperatives in Mount Apo that are doing good coffee at the moment. If they step up and increase production or increase hectarage, then we definitely have a chance of exporting and making a mark in specialty coffee. But we have to start early because the other countries are also doing it, like Thailand. Vietnam now is getting into specialty coffee as well.
just one thing.
Sabah, which is in
Sabah,
Malaysia, which is part supposedly of the Philippines. Controversial,
There's a
but
raving, there's a
gray
raging
area.
controversy.
They
Let's not
are
get into
growing
that.
specialty coffee there now, in Sabah. In Sabah. And what's to stop the other
I think we
countries in Southeast Asia? Myanmar. has
Myanmar,
very
ah?
good coffee.
Oh, really?
You would be surprised. If you taste Myanmarese coffee, it's very good.
Somebody importing that?
Okay, so I know all of this because we're also part, the coffee board's part of ASEF.
What is ASEAN?
ASEF, which is
ASEAN.
ASEAN Coffee Federation, which we have a group of different associations in different ASEAN countries. So it's an ASEAN grouping of coffee groups.
So that's good, huh?
Yeah. So we are
Yes.
members of the ACF, and that's where we learn about our neighbors' coffee. So
So you
we were in Hanoi in the last December. There was a conference there, and we attended, and that's how we learned that the Vietnamese now are creating their own Arabica varieties to suit their own growing conditions, because they have the research.
Should hold our horses right now.
I'm sorry.
We have a commercial break.
Okay.
Yeah, this
Yeah, when we come back, I'm going to
coming
ask you
to
about
last of
RCEP.
this RCEP. That's a good topic.
No,
Okay,
RCEP is quite
I mean,
controversial.
when
potentially,
we come back,
potentially that should be great.
Iba ng panahon, ang dami ng bago ngayon. Pati ang mundo natin, well, nagbago na rin. Buti ano bayan, bigger, better na. You can buy it sa centers, pati sa mga parties, may online pa at app. You can buy it with your fingers, still don't remittance and more. Online shopping, you can buy it all. Di magpadala, you can buy it all. Anumang pera transaction, you can buy it all.
Sabayan ang pagbabago ng mundo for all your pera transactions, all new Bayan.
Fiber is the free and secure way to connect with friends and family anywhere. Send messages and make phone and video calls for free. Download Viber now.
Every time I'm on the road, I can expect high performance from Phoenix Fuels. Now with Pulse technology, delivers enhanced power and acceleration to make every trip come alive.
welcome back to Straight Talk, Teddy.
Now, there was a question about mentoring.
Yeah. UCC, what's the
Another
difference
founding
between...
member.
We are with UCC,
Yes,
of
I'm a
course,
business
that's an
development
afterthought.
director. Yeah, the UCC Mentore is just a concept of a coffee shop, as opposed to, let's say, UCC Terrace, UCC Park Cafe, which were the traditional UCC shops. Then, fast forward 2014, 2015, we created Monterey to keep up with the new coffee concepts, new coffee
Which is
shops,
like what?
which is more pour over,
Okay.
rather from the espresso concept. No, more origin coffee.
Yeah.
So mentore, in Italian it means to mentor.
Yeah.
So we were trying to educate the market. with this coffee
Let's just
shop.
talk about this.
Just a shop like that.
You want to ask about RCEP?
RCEP, yes. Well,
But it's because
we have just signed,
ratified. We just
Just
ratified.
by Senate,
it
yeah.
by the Senate.
Well,
And
What is the
how-
impact
how
on
would-
well, the
on
impact on
Philippine
that
coffee?
is there will just be
Coffee
more coffee products from these other 5 countries, which is Japan. Well, Japan, we are importing our products from Japan, but it will become more freely available, more
More cheap?
cheaper.
Will it be? Will
Well, the taxes.
UCC coffee become cheaper?
Not necessarily, but I think
Getting
products
excited,
from Japan, China, Korea, no? Korea, New Zealand,
New Zealand,
and what's the other one?
and the ASEAN countries.
But Philippine coffee will also be known more.
Well, we will have more access. We will
to
have more
markets,
access.
sir.
Yes,
So a wider market.
wider market, because if you don't join RCEP and these 5 countries will say we'll only get from Vietnam or from Thailand or
Talo
from
ka.
Talo ka,
Yeah.
right? So it's also a good way of bringing our coffee to their markets.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why if we step up our production,
Which we should.
which we should.
So how are the state of the farmers? Are they getting enough government support?
Well, they are. The DA and the DTI have their usual coffee programs, which they support the farmers with inputs, seedlings, fertilizer programs. DTI helps them out with technology, how to market their coffees, let's say, and roast their coffees. So there's a move for DTI to give out equipment also for different LGUs. So they've been helping out in their own ways.
How about funding, financing of
Financing, wala talaga. Financing, well, land bank would be the most that you can rely on.
We land back.
Direct financing, land bank. Land bank is, land bank is financing some farms. I'm sure about that. It's more of the question of really willingness of a lot of farmers to go out there and till the farms. I think it's still a question of their, their willingness and their wanting to grow more coffee. Incentives also.
Is it a difficult crop? Is it a difficult to
Coffee
grow?
is not really that difficult, although it also relies a lot on nature.
Okay.
Because-
How long does it take?
Like
from-
all
from-
other
from-
crops.
3 years
3 years to harvest?
to have the first production.
Wow.
Medyo matagal. That's a problem with coffee. You only harvest once a year. It takes 3 years before it becomes productive. But the beauty about coffee is once you harvest, you can store for a long period of time.
I see.
So you don't have to sell right away. So if the market is not good for you, then
So
you
you
can
can keep
store
it.
your coffee. Yeah. So I think
That's
it's one of the crops like
advantage.
black pepper and I think nuts that you can store for a longer period
For a
of
longer
time.
period.
You yourself were in, what were you before UCC? So you had O&O.
O&O,
after
then
O&O,
I had Cafex.
you had cafe. That's
Yeah,
your
after
own.
O&O, yeah, that was
Cafex
my
is
own.
what?
Cafex
Cafex
was
is
a
very
roasting
com-
company.
Roasting.
Yeah,
coffee.
so that's
you're
where-
roasting coffee for other people?
I had a lot of clients, especially institutional clients,
This is so nice.
big QSRs,
What's
and
QSR?
quick service restaurants.
Okay.
And
And then you made
cafes.
your own.
There were then I had my own brand. I had Continental Coffee,
Correct. Yeah.
and then eventually fast forward. Eventually partnered with another coffee guy, and then eventually we morphed into UCC Philippines.
What did you want?
We UCC was
Bought your
yeah.
company.
yeah.
Okay.
UCC says Japanese brand, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think one of the best.
And one of the best in Japan.
The best. Ted.
The best. First coming from somebody who is with UCC, of course, it has to be the best. But what are the similarities and the dissimilarities between, let's say, Philippine coffee and UCC coffee?
UCC
from
Coffee
Japan.
naman kasi is curated by UCC Japan. I mean, curated, in other words, they blend it themselves. They have their special technology to roast it. Whereas in Philippine coffee, it's usually locally grown coffee bought by, let's say, a roaster here, a small batch roaster, then they roast it and come up with different, types of coffee. So, UCC kasi basically is a brand and it's roasted in Japan. We roast ourselves here under the UCC brand. But then again, pag local coffee kasi, it's really like indigenous and it's local in the sense that locally grown and locally roasted. So yun lang naman ang main difference.
That's UCC.
We also have local origins, but we're not yet marketing them in a big way because of the volume restrictions. There's not enough volume.
Is there a specialized government agency that takes
Well, there's
care
an
of,
ICOCA
coffee
certifying
industry?
agency, which is still under the DTI. This was a bigger office then during the exports. But right now, it's
What
just,
do you mean during the
it's just a small office in the DTI that takes care of exports. In other words, you have to pass through that office if you want to export coffee.
I see. Okay.
But
no.
it's more a regulatory office. But there's no actual coffee authority
Yeah,
which
regulates
takes a bigger scope into or a bigger view of the
promoting
industry. Yeah.
industry.
Well, you have in the DA you have the high value crops division, which is in charge of high value crops like coffee.
Exclusively coffee.
Not exclusively coffee. They have other like cacao. They have, I think, black pepper also, and different commodities.
Mr. Torrejon, there's so many. There's been a mushrooming of coffee shops, no, in the country. Not only Metro Manila, but outside of
Outside of Metro Manila, you'd be surprised.
Davao,
Laguna.
Cebu, etc.
No, here la, within the
Yes.
suburbs. My God.
How much does it
Batangas.
cost
to put up a coffee shop? Not much. So if it's a small coffee shop without heavy equipment, maybe 300,000, you can have a coffee shop.
What kind of equipment would you need?
Well, pour over. A lot of these people who are even mobile, they put up mobile coffee shops, right? They have
Yeah,
their
I saw
cars,
one,
then they
I saw
open it at the back, and they have the AeroPress, they have the pour over.
Just a cart.
Yeah, just a cart. I mean, it's as simple as that. You can have
Let me say this,
a coffee shop.
revolution.
There's a coffee revolution because it's ingrained in the Filipino culture
Correct.
to drink coffee.
So Starbucks
Was in the right place
yeah, was in
when
the
they
right place,
started.
no?
Yeah. So that's
Would
why
you- would you want-
Starbucks flourished so much in the Philippines because we
how?
already had a coffee culture when they came in,
Great.
right?
Yes.
I mean, before let's say all of this Figaro, before all of these coffee shops came about, we had coffee shops already in Bacolod.
Yeah.
We had the La Corona Cafe, remember, which my grandfather used to, and that was a coffee shop. We
Yes.
had Taza de Oro in
Manila.
Ross Boulevard.
In Ross Boulevard.
We had the very thick cups,
Yeah.
and that was already coffee.
Yes.
That was the coffee culture already started in the Philippines way back in the early 1900s, probably.
It's true. Yeah.
So all our grandparents and our ancestors were drinking coffee.
Yes.
So it's really a coffee drinking country. So that's why a lot of the coffee companies are
Yeah,
interested
when-
to come
when
into
Starbucks
Manila.
came in, the young kids thought it was so cool.
Yeah, to
have their
to
own,
frappuccino
put up
and
their own
everything.
laptops
yeah.
and then,
yeah.
and then study there,
it's
have
really
coffee, etc. Yeah. Okay.
So would we have to thank to the Spaniards in bringing the
No,
industry?
the one who started. Who was the one who planted first here?
The Francisca Friar. We have the friars to thank.
So this is these
oh,
are the
so- so
The
Spaniards.
Spaniards, yeah.
Okay.
No, but I think it was more of there's not a controversy, but I think we really got our coffee not from we got our coffee from Mexico. This was through the galleon trade.
Correct. Yeah.
To the galleon.
I think it was
Galleon
more
trade.
through the galleon trade. So Mexico was instrumental even for our cacao.
Have you been to Mexico?
No, that's one of my bucket lists.
I wonder how the sila niya Tito Beach. But
They're there?
Yeah. they
Where?
went.
Mexico City?
Mexico.
How?
Mexico.
Eat all the tacos. Waka.
But
Tacos.
But I wonder what Mexican coffee is like.
Mexican coffee is good. They also grow predominantly Arabica. They have Wakan coffee. They have very high grade coffee, but Mexican coffee doesn't really reach the Philippines.
Oh.
The U.S. already consumes most of it.
I see.
There's
So,
none here in the market.
Wala
Yeah,
tayong
malapit
makukuha
ka sa
Mexican
Amerika.
coffee.
Eh. There's
Yeah.
a big market there
Yeah,
already.
the Central American coffee producers are the ones feeding the U.S. market, like Costa Rica,
Like in
Salvador,
UCC,
Yeah.
do you,
Honduras.
do you sell Mexican coffee?
No, we have Colombian, we have
Why not?
Brazil coffee, but well, it's not
the
not
beans.
plentiful. It's not a lot, and it gets consumed basically by the U.S. market.
Yeah,
Is it
it's just
strong?
right in the border.
Stronger than,
Mild,
usual?
mild, mild
Mild?
coffee. Yeah, it's
It's
mild
mild
coffee.
coffee.
Mild.
So,
What is the strongest coffee that you've tasted?
Indonesian.
Yeah, of course, Komodo.
Komodo.
Sumatra.
Komodo.
Those are my favorites.
These are very strong-bodied
Yeah, love it.
coffees. It's because
Sumatra.
also
Coffee
the
of
volcanic
dragons.
soil of Indonesia. So, you know,
Yeah.
Indonesia is very volcanic.
Fantastic. You have fantastic coffee.
Bastantes
What about
coffee.
Vietnam?
Very
Oh,
underrated. Very underrated.
I tasted one time this Vietnamese coffee.
Ah,
It was
Well-
given to it. My God, when I checked the price, it was very expensive. Huh?
the Vietnamese
It
coffee
was
is
very good.
predominantly
It was given to me
Robusta,
in England.
Robusta, and highly roasted. And then what you drink there is the Cafe Suada,
What's that?
which is from the filter. From the filter, then they put a lot of condensed milk.
No, I don't like that.
Yeah,
You gave
that's
it to me,
called
no.
Cafe Suada.
I was given a whole bag of beans. Which I had.
Well, they have expensive coffee there.
Oh, very expensive. The Vietnamese, but that particular brand, forgot it.
Chung Wen.
Well, I
It's
don't
Chung
know
Wen
what
or
they do.
Leman. These are very expensive Vietnamese coffees.
Masarap.
So,
Good
I
flavor.
guess we have reached the end of our program.
Is it time for a cup of coffee?
Yeah, I think Ed, you have to get your cup.
Yes.
Do you have any other words?
Very good. Do you have a
Thank
last
you.
Manny?
Thank you for inviting me and sharing, and for me to share my insights about Philippine coffee and coffee in general. I think Filipinos are great coffee lovers, and they should stay that way, and even siguro increase their consumption. And my message is basically for those who are interested in growing coffee, start now.
Why?
Because we're gonna have a lot of problems in the future because of climate change.
Oh, I see.
So if you grow coffee now, you'll get the wave. You'll get into the wave of coffee product. Or probably pricing. As a matter of fact, at the moment, medyo tumataas na yung presyo ng coffee. And 50 years down the road daw, sabi nila, we'll have very, very little coffee areas.
But plus the demand for coffee.
Just the demand of coffee is growing. So
growing.
for
I
those
mean, it's
people
huge.
who are interested or at least want to get into agriculture, plant your coffee today.
On that note,
On that note,
have a cup of Java.
Have a cup of
everybody.
Java. Thank you very much, Teddy and Chito.
thank you very much for your time.
inviting
Thank you
Mr.
for your
Torrejon.
time as well.
Anytime, anytime.